It's time for the first video in this marathon, and it's with the Redux. Looking back, I wasn't really happy with the original video I made on this game. Then again, that was in high school, and I'm not really happy with a lot of videos I made during my high school career, but hey, we can't really change the past. At least not yet. A spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series, Persona is an interesting beast, as in being more popular than what it spun out of. I'm not really sure how many spin-offs actually overtake the original, but here we are. Taking cues and the female protagonist from another SMT spin-off, Shin Megami Tensei If, the Persona series is one that I'm pretty sure a majority of us started with the third game onwards. It's funny to think about, but that's unfortunately the attitude Atlus has been taking with the series ever since 4. Anything before 3 just doesn't exist. Hell, Persona 3 just got a remake announced, with one of the two games getting second place in a little voting competition on what fans want to see remade. Though thinking about it now, I highly doubt Atlus was going to remake 1 or 2 regardless. Developed by the P Studio side of Atlus, the original port would be released here in the West in 1996 with horrible localization. Thankfully, localizers have gotten better, for the most part. You still get some snags from time to time, even if there's a very close translation. Regardless, since this is the late 90s, we all know what that means. Changing character names, even hairstyles for some characters, and erasing anything Japanese except for, well, not really. Yeah, it's funny to think about nowadays, but fucking hell, it's a good thing standards have gotten better, again for the most part. I'm playing the PS1 version in this video, recorded off my PlayStation Classic. The only thing not included in the original release we got is the Snow Queen quest. This was due to not having any time for it. Ironic, I know. And there was an attempt to localize it, since the first Philemon cutscene for that quest is voiced in English, but nothing else thanks to the English text engine. It does make a return in the PSP remaster, but that's for another video. Today, however, it's a Butterfly Dream sponsored by 4Kids TV. That is to say, Revelations Persona. Welcome to Lunarvale, home to the Sebek Corp and the students of whatever St. Hurlum is called in English. If it isn't St. Hurlum, then I'm an idiot, but would still be an idiot if the ST didn't stand for Saint. Regardless, we see some students play a game called Persona. This is a ritual of sorts that I'm not entirely sure what it's used for, though after siding with Brad saying that this ritual will work, they begin. And at first, yeah, it doesn't seem like it worked, but that's until a ghost appears asking for help, summoning lightning bolts that take out Nate, Yuki, Mark, and Naoya. Thanks to this, they have the same individual dream of this man named Philemon. After giving him their names, Philemon gives them the power of Persona, the power to summon the many gods and demons within yourself. Naoya is the only one who's still cogged out, but when he wakes up, the teacher tells him and the others to go to the hospital. When they arrive, they kill some time before their checkup by catching up with a classmate that's been hospitalized for a while now. This is Mary, and it's clear that her condition really isn't good. In fact, it sucks. So much to the point that she's eventually rushed to the ICU. But thanks to an earthquake, the hospital is turned into a maze, and the ICU is gone. Following a scream, they come across demons. Well, zombies to be exact, and because of this, I'm pretty sure the Spec group has a deal with Umbrella. But thanks to the zombies attacking, Nate's butler is, well, killed, and we avenge him by awakening to our personas, saving the hospital staff and patients. They make their way out while running into Ellen. She takes the group to the shrine where we find Mary's mother, Nancy. She warns the group that all of this is thanks to a man named Guido Sardinia. Yes, really. Though she faints after explaining this. Mark and Nate goes to the police station to try and get some guns, and we take Nancy to the school where we get the funniest line in video game history. And we also somehow come across Mary. She's also not like the Mary that we know, mainly because she's confused on the new additions to the school. Nate shows up in a hole in the wall, long story, and apparently Mark got locked up. We save him along with Brad, and this is where we get a choice. I've already set things up to get a character named Chris in the party, but you can have Brad join here, or you can track down Ellen in the subway to add her to the party, or when the team goes to the secret entrance to the Splattack building, the company Guido created, you can add Alana to the party there. It's a cool thing, but I kinda wish we had them all swapping characters out when needed because of, gameplay. Regardless, we confront Guido, though he runs away, leaving us to deal with his bodyguard, Tiny. Names are stupid even for botched localization. Regardless, we take him out and find Guido again, though he activates something called the Deva system, a machine that bends reality. The scientist that worked on this traps both him and Guido in this thing to destroy both of them, but we can't have him sacrificing himself, so we stop the system, though that really ends up sending us through a portal to a different dimension, where we meet Bruce, a student who went missing a while back, and he fills us in that this world is pretty much a paradise of sorts for Mary. Another earthquake happens, doing the same exact thing to our current location that it did to the hospital, and traveling across his school, we find Chris. He joins the party reluctantly, and they even come across the person who did this, a little kid named Maggie. And after she trolls the group, she summons a robotic rat to kill them. That doesn't work, but the downside is she left when she summoned the rat, so the group has to go to the other side of the town, getting trapped in the black market. And it's here where we confront the harem queen. With a name like that, it actually makes me want to watch Ouran High School Host Club again. Seriously, watch or read it, it's a good series, but that aside, this is another character who disappeared, Bruce's girlfriend, Selena. She reveals some resentment towards Mary because of her artistic talent, though she uses the power of her mirror to cast us out of her castle, which pisses me off because I actually really hate the Karma Palace. However, we get back to the throne room where Selena has more moles on her face. This is because of the power of her mirror, and after pissing her off saying that Mary's paintings are better than hers, Selena decides to turn everyone but Mary and Nalia to stone. Maggie appears, promising to fix Selena's face, but the lie detector determined that was a lie. Maggie fucks off, and Bruce dashed in to confront and confess his love for Selena, with Selena admitting that she does love him as well. Her face is fixed, and the others are freed of their stone prison. They're led to the castle that needs a compact to enter, so we head to the Lost Forest because there may be a compact there. This may not be the Dark Forest, but I'm pretty sure we need a full penta to travel through this place. Regardless, we find a girl named May, who tried to stop us from taking an item that we needed to cross over to the other side of the town. She's hesitant to give us compact because it will cause more trouble if Guido gets his hands on it, though we convince her to give us compact, not without promising that Guido won't get his hands on it. Guido then gets his hands on it. Yeah, the whole entire thing was a trap, because with these compacts, he's able to create the Deva Yuga, a castle that will turn him into a god. We confront him where he seems bored with his new role, asking why humans exist. Though thanks to Nate, we, have to fight him where Guido's persona absorbs him. In the end, Guido says Nate was pretty much right about him, and we learn that this Mary is an ideal version of Mary that Mary wants to be. Wow, that didn't sound confusing at all. Teaching career is gonna be f***ing fantastic. Jokes aside, this is confirmed when the ideal Mary finds the real Mary. Though if Maggie and May looking like younger versions of Mary didn't give it away, yeah, they're also two different versions of Mary. And the best part about this whole entire thing is that the game just starts calling them all Mary, which didn't confuse the hell out of me, the fucking pricks. With this revelation, Maggie fucks off somewhere, and Mary goes back to the other world since we got back to the real world to confront Guido. However, she gets caught by a temple guard because she didn't have a pendant, I tried to fucking warn her, and the others need to try and get back to the other world to save Mary. Doubly so since things might not go so well for the real Mary if they don't. Though they can't use Guido's mirror since after the ideal Mary used it, the thing broke. Though thankfully that doesn't result in 7 years bad luck since a broken compact in their possession is somehow fixed thanks to the shard of that mirror. With this fix, they teleport to the entrance of the Lost Forest and meet Nancy. She somehow heard Mary's voice and made a beeline to the forest, and we take her with us to meet May again. It's here where May reveals where Maggie went, and that's to meet one more version of Mary, and that's Pandora. And this is so she can wipe out the whole entire world. However, she got absorbed into Pandora, but in order to stop her, they need the power of all 3 compacts. The good news is we already have 2, the newly fixed compact and the one from the real Mary. while the final compact is with Mary's soul. To get to her soul, we have to travel through this collective unconscious. Though it's not going to be smooth sailing because this collective unconscious thing is horrible to travel through. Why? Mary and Nalia are the only ones who can travel through here, and it fucking sucks. We get the final compact and we head over to the school to confront Pandora and save Mary's mind from total destruction. The ideal Mary sends everyone back to the real world, and the gang and the real Mary graduates, stay friends until they do their postgraduate stuff, and eventually everyone dies thanks to gang violence. What? Don't look at me like that. That's literally what this fucking screams. In terms of story, I actually found it to be alright. The only thing I didn't really like is the exclusion of the other characters. Doubly so for Yuki because she's only available in the Snow Queen quest for whatever reason. I can understand the smaller scale for mainline SMT, but I think Persona works better with having a larger cast. That's more of a consequence of my first Persona game being Persona 3. That, and I don't really think there's a good reason not to bring anyone else. I mean, I can understand not having Chris join unless you do the things to set him up since, you know, he's a loner, but I don't know, I think it would have been better to have the others join up. Regardless of the botched localization, the story is a lot better than what I remember. Though that's mainly because of my age at the time. I made my original video on this game when I was like a junior in high school. Hell, I even took my laptop to school to work on the script during lunchtime. But I think the message of staying true to yourself is pretty well handled here. The character Chris is my favorite, just seeing him going from a loner who joins up because, you know, safety in numbers, starts lighting up until we finally get a chance to confront Guido. They're half-brothers, and the father pretty much tossed Chris and his mother away, so he wants to get some revenge, but when he gets said revenge, he feels empty for, well, obvious reasons, but at the end of the day, he learns the true superpower of friendship. And in the end, he even gets a wife, so, you know, good for him. He's definitely a top-tier character in this game, and I definitely enjoyed everyone else in the story as well. However, because of the botched localization, I would definitely recommend you to play the PSP version, but hey, there's nothing wrong with playing the original PS1 version if, you know, you like the PS1 aesthetics and all. But one reason to never ever touch the PS1 version is that this game is slow as hell. The biggest reason comes down to dungeon crawling. Now, there is a run button, but you can't use it in the dungeons, and to be perfectly honest, I don't understand why. The speed you're going at is the speed you're going for the whole entire game, and I really do not like this. And it wouldn't be as bad if the run button just, you know, worked everywhere. Which this does get fixed in the PSP remaster, though it's a bit of an overcorrection because you move a little too fast, but hey, whatever gets me out of Karma Palace faster, the better. It's odd, but hey, at least we have a run button for the map, and this is actually the worst thing for me to navigate. And I don't even get why it was made 3D in the first place, mainly because the map in Shin Megami Tensei was fucking perfect. And that was on the SNES, well, technically Super Famicom. Let's face it, we all know someone is going to say something like that. And they would make it more like a proper SMT map in the next game, and in this game's remaster as well, but my issue here is that things are really bland looking. It's just mind-numbing to travel across, and even with the run button, it takes way too long to go through. It's a good thing that we have that map, or else I would have tracked down every copy of this game and burnt them down to the ground, and made sure any ISO of this game is wiped off the face of the internet. It would definitely bankrupt me like 6 times over, but you know what? It would be worth it. Yeah, I don't understand the 3D stuff. It makes this a slog to get through. And the same applies to the battle animations. Like, when summoning personas, it looks cool, especially with the after images, but it takes a tad bit too long, doubly so with certain enemy animations for moves like Waltz. You can have a whole encounter where every enemy has this move, and each of them will perform it. All of this is fixed in the remaster. Hell, they even allow you to turn off battle animations for normal encounters, and this is stuff I love. But this game is just way too easy. I mean, I had moments where I was worried I would get a game over, but to be honest, there's nothing really to worry about. Doubly so since I never had to worry about SP. It refills as you walk around, and this is still a thing in the remaster, but thankfully it's balanced better there. Doubly so since I never used any SP restoration item in game. Now that I think about it, I don't even know if any of those items are in the game. That's how much you don't need them in this game. It's funny, doubly so since guns are actually useful, compared to them coming back in both versions of Persona 5. No ammo count is awesome, though gun and sword attacks along with physical Persona skills are all proximity based, and this is something I do not like. Again, fixed kind of in the remaster, but I really hate when I want to use a physical skill with marked and can't hit because of where I have him at. And I also don't think there's a good middle ground with having a character one back from the front row, mainly because it feels impossible to get a hit in with these skills. Now you can move mid-battle, but that unfortunately takes a turn, which I do understand due to balancing, but I'm personally bugged by it. Doubly so when I get attacked from the rear. Mary is all exposed in the front and ripe to get her shit kicked in. That shit is annoying as hell, and I really wish it didn't cost me a turn to fix things, doubly so when a party member gets confused. Thankfully that has only happened once, but it's still definitely annoying. Magic skills have unlimited range, which is fantastic, but I really wish I wasn't restricted in this manner. It makes this game into an SRPG in a way, but outside of me not really being a fan of those, doesn't help that the next Persona 5 spin-off is a SRPG. This is definitely done better in other games. The only real annoying thing is that you have to select all the moves for each character before, doing anything. This is a mainstay up until Persona 3 where things went a little more standard, but outside of my issues with the battle animations and character positionings, it really isn't a bad game, just way too easy, and that's due to the game being locked on easy mode. I don't really like that. I mean, I may record on easy mode when available because I really don't want to be here for like 5,000 years, but I don't think it's that hard of a game. I guess to balance that, whenever you get a spell card, the battle immediately ends, and I really hate that. Now this isn't changed in the remaster, and I just don't get it. When I go to grind, I just want the experience and spell cards, not just one or the other. It's only an annoyance, however, but there is a big issue for me, and that's the fact that I really hate contacting. And don't get me wrong, I know that this is a huge part of the series that this spun off of, but it is confusing to hell and back. More so here because you have 5 party members with 4 different speech options, and demons are a tad bit finicky to talk to. Maybe it's because I'm an introvert, but I can never seem to figure out what to do so I can get these guys interested in me to get those f***ing cards. You have 4 emotions that demons can be. You can either piss them off to the point that they don't want to talk to you, or they gain the advantage in battle, scare them so that they run away or gain the fear status, happy to the point that they don't really do anything with the happy condition or give you cash or experience, or interested that they give us random items, cash, or a spell card. Again, I don't like this. I believe the moon cycle also has a say on what emotions trigger, but I just can't figure this out regardless. Even with a damn guide I found, I just don't like contacting. I'm gonna be a broken record, especially when we get to 5, but it just always seems way too hard for me to figure out. I'm not really sure how SMT 5 handles things, but again, they brought this back with Persona 5, and it's definitely better there, but I still don't understand how to get these shadows as personas. So much to the point that I just stopped contacting thanks to the compendium. But unfortunately, this is before the compendium got added to SMT. There is an area that you can find demons from earlier areas, because some places are no returns, but SMT introducing the demonic compendium in Nocturne is literally the best thing that ever happened to the series, mainline or Persona. Regardless, I don't mind the fusion. To be perfectly honest, if you remember my very shitty original video, I mentioned that I actually liked the search feature here, but not anymore. I've actually learned how to use the fusion system. White icons do nothing, blue gives a stat boost, and red is a high chance of fusion accidents. Arrows will signify any skill inheritance from the demons being fused. It's actually not confusing after learning all that, and I've gone with the self-service option ever since. It's not a bad fusion system, to be honest, and I'm glad I'm not stuck with search fusion. SMT4 apparently does that, and unfortunately Strikers does that as well. Then again, Strikers is shit, so of course it does that. Save your comments for the Strikers video because I will tear that f***ing game apart. Quite literally, mind you. The one cool thing to the system is that items can either give you stat boosts or skills, or hell, even a specific persona. Gems will change the resulting persona randomly, while totems make a specific persona if the initial persona matches the same arcana. It's a cool system, but I could take it or leave it. It's cool that anyone can equip a persona, but each character has different compatibility with different arcanas. It's not something the game will outright tell you unless, maybe you have a manual, not really sure about that, but it's cool to f*** around and see what works. Each party member can only have 3 personas equipped, and the more they're used, the stronger they get. You are able to return personas for weapons and items, but I didn't really bother with that. Last thing to mention is, well, the proper dungeon crawling, and outside of not having a run button, it's honestly not bad. For 99% of the game, you're just staring at the map, though that may have been just me. Looking back at all my gameplay footage, I barely turned my view. I wouldn't be shocked if this stays the same when I start the remaster and the Q games, though there's barely any puzzles in this game, which kind of disappoints me. The only actual puzzles in these games are the switch puzzles that were only in the first part of the spec building, and the top level of Deva Yuga. Though there really isn't any thought in them, they just open up pathways and that's really it. Though I wasn't able to see any of the switches, but to be honest, that's more my fault than anything else, because there's really no need to turn your point of view in this game. It's probably why they went for a third-person view for everything starting with Innocent Sin, though again, this is fixed with the remaster marking switches on your map no matter what. Though, the Karma Palace, this place is so confusing to navigate. It hurt my head trying to figure this shit out, and it turns out you just had to keep falling from places. I do not understand the layout here. I immediately went to a guide after like 50 minutes of just mind-numbing exploration. Thankfully, it's not the Red Temple. Fucking hell, my first playthrough of Nocturne and getting there, it was not fun. But aside from that, every other dungeon really wasn't bad, though I'm shocked they didn't do these blackout stuff more often. I mean, they weren't bad to navigate since you couldn't really tell where each corridor really was, and I don't think it would have been bad to use these more often, though. The worst dungeon, aside from the Karma Palace in my opinion, is that fucking shrine dungeon. Even though this version of the game is really easy, this was a very annoying section to run through. It did not help that I died here multiple times. I do regret not emulating or using the save states in the PS1 Classic more often, because some of these encounters are horrible. Having only 2 party members can really screw you over, doubly so since all these enemies really do in this dungeon is cast status magic. Well, even then, whatever the localized names of Mudo skills got me killed more often than not, so I guess it could be worse, but hey, at the end of the day, having only 2 bad dungeons is better than all of them being bad, so, you know, there's that. Seriously, in combination with the Mudo skills and the status magic, especially with my mortal enemy, the charm status, that I will get into with Persona 3, the Shrine Dungeon is just way too long. But hey, one factor that can really bring this game down in some people's eyes is the presentation. Well, I mean, to start off with, the Philemon cutscenes are actually pretty good for the time. However, they don't really know how to keep his legs in place. Even then, I would rather all of the Philemon cutscenes be 2D animated, mainly because I can see what they're trying to do, especially with the final cutscene, but it just does not look right. However, the in-engine cutscenes are definitely worse because, well, you see these character stills? Well, they do not emote whatsoever in this game. Even in more emotional points like at the start of the game with Alfred dying, yeah, Nate's in-game model does indeed change, but his face does not, and this is what you'll see. Granted, this does not look like the face of Mercy, but it makes things a tad bit stilted. It's the same issue I have with Tales of Symphonia, a game that I think I was a tad bit too hard on and probably will make a new video on, triply so since I have its sequel, Dawn of a New World, but in that game's case, look at the character models. If they don't emote, they stay the same. No amount of emotion in the voice is going to change that fact. And when it comes down to the cutscenes here, where regular cutscenes don't have voice acting, I don't read the text with emotion, I just read it neutrally. It's not what you want, especially with the cutscenes where the party convinces May to give us a compact, Maggie trolling the group at the other school, confronting the ideal Mary, the cutscene before the Guido/Super Guido boss, and the final boss where the character tells Pandora that they're strong because they're not alone. It just feels so stale, I guess you could say. This isn't due to the localization, because this is what we got with the Japanese original and PSP remaster. And they will learn from this mistake with Innocent Sin, though here there's just so much you can do with the in-game sprites, which is barely anything, because they stand, flinch, summon their personas, and just die. Nothing more, nothing less. The rest of the game looks pretty good, if I'm gonna be honest. The only real issue is the overworld. Again, it's too dull to travel through, and if I didn't have that map in this area, I would not be able to find my way around. Seriously, I'm so glad that they fixed this with the remaster and Innocent Sin before I forget about that. But hey, at least the music is good. Like the song I played at the beginning of the video. It's called Awakening, and it's used in all of the Awakening cutscenes, and it's freaking awesome. Same with the rest of the soundtrack. This game definitely has some great tracks that I'm really gonna miss in the remaster, but hey, even that version does have some rocking tunes. I think Persona is like Sonic in that fashion. Oh shit, that's actually kind of ironic now that I think about it. The majority of its songs, game quality aside, are really good and set the mood perfectly. It's also one of the few JRPGs to have the battle music actually have a full-out ending to it. I mean, it seems abrupt because the ending notes will just play regardless of where the music is at, but yeah, it's still great, and I do recommend you give the soundtrack a listen if you haven't already. Though overall, is this something I can recommend to you? Well, when taking into account of story, characters, gameplay, graphics, and sound, well, yeah, I'm gonna drop it down a point from last time, going from a 6 to a 5. To be honest, the game isn't bad. In fact, I actually kind of like the story, very poor localization aside. My only big gripes are with the dungeon crawling and presentation. For the presentation, there's no emotion to the character stills at all. Just that blank stare looking straight into your soul. It's like some shit out of a fucking horror movie. Due to this, the impact is lost in some of these cutscenes where you can't really get it back, even if normal cutscenes had voice acting. The dungeon crawling, as I mentioned, is very slow, and this is due to not having a run button for these areas. And not to mention, it can be a little annoying for those switches because of the lack of need to actually turn your point of view. Even then, at the end of the day, the game isn't perfect, and not a good starting point. If you're at all interested in Persona, probably like your third or fourth Persona game. If you're not interested in Persona, then I wouldn't bother, especially because of the localization issues with this version. I did hear that there was a fan translation in the works, but I am not sure what the status of it is, and whether or not the Snow Queen quest will be available. Regardless, if you do want to play this game, it's better to play the remaster, but I'll make my case on that later. For now, this game is available on the PS1 and PC. If you have a PlayStation Classic like I do, then there you go. Multiple ways to play, unless you want to break the bank. Trust me, it's just better to sail the high seas on this one. Unless you can find a PS1 Classic like how I was able to do. Well, at a good price, I should say. I'd argue 50 was way too much for this thing, but regardless, next time, we'll be staying in this butterfly dream, where we get to see the official fan sub version of this game, with Shin Megami Tensei Persona. I'll see you guys then.